Greetings, everyone. It's election season, and we want you to be encouraged to vote. My name is Sana Joseph Smith, and I will serve as your moderator this evening. I am a member of the Synchro Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated and the Social Action Committee Chair. On behalf of our president, Petra Victor, I welcome you to this evening's conversation. Joining me today, we have some fabulous panelists, and we're going to have an awesome conversation. We have Mr. Raymond Williams, who is a board member of the Virgin Islands Election Board. Welcome, Mr. Williams.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
We also have Ms. Annette Scott. She's a member of the League of Women Voters. Welcome. And then over here, we have Mr. Ashley Scotland. He's a former vice chair of the St. Croix District Democratic Party and our political consultant for today. And last but not least, we have Ms. Carolyn Fox. You are the supervisor of the Elections Board.
Thank you.
So we have the real deal folks here tonight. We have some power coming to you. Our discussion really has been fueled by the rise in voter apathy, especially amongst our younger voters. Many of our community members are just losing interest in voting and seeing the importance and need to vote. And they're just really feeling disenchanted about the process. And so we're hoping this evening to really shed some light on the process, share with you our stories and reasons why you should exercise your right to vote. So my first question, before we dig into all the numbers and the technical part of it, is that I really want you guys to share with our audience and why you are so passionate about voting, why you as an individual still feel the need to be out there and encourage everyone to vote. So I'm going to start with ladies first. Ms. Fox.
Again, yes, good afternoon. Again, I served in the military for 32 years. So for me being a veteran, I know what folks have gone through for the right to vote. I find it a passion to make sure I get out and inform the public about the importance of voting.
Awesome. That's a solid reason. I don't know what else anybody else going to say, but that's solid. We died for you, vote. Sorry, Ashley, back on track.
Yes. For me, it's something that a couple of reasons. One, I grew up just being passionate about politics, recognizing that it impacts every single area of our lives, that people actually fought and died to vote, for our rights to vote. And then, it's perspective of my mom, who is a naturalized citizen from St. Lucia, and, when she became naturalized, like she basically had to earn her right to vote. And, that, privilege is something that I looked at and I don't take for granted, and I think that everyone should be as passionate about participating in a democratic process that allows ourselves the ability to impact our community and affect change.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing.
Okay, it's compassion for me also, because when you look at the suffrage and the fact that blacks were only allowed to vote 59 years, 1965, when Lyndon B. Johnson signed that act? No, he did it, 1965. And the fact that blacks in general couldn't vote, even when they were free. They were supposed to vote, but they were held back.
Right.
And don't talk about the women's suffrage movement, because that was a movement that really changed a lot of stuff. Women have the power and being empowered to make that change.
And shameless plug, Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated was the first and only black organization marching back then in 1913 for that first suffrage march. So
yes, and 22 founders. Yes. I'm proud of that. But and the fact that they had to walk in the back. So you have to go in the back. A lot of people, I'm not going in the back. Well, you got to go in the back to come forward.
Yeah.
Don't use that excuse. If you're not a part of the process, you may be part of the problem.
Awesome. Mr. Williams.
I'm just going to bite one of Ms. Supervisor Fox's lines. Your vote is your voice. If you don't participate in the process, you are part of the problem. It's as simple as that. I've been a member of the Board of Elections for 22 years now. And for 40 years of my life, I've seen voter apathy consistently all the time. People complain, you don't fix a pothole, you can't get your income tax refund. The reason why a lot of those things may be so is because you're not participating. If you're not participating, you have zero voice. So you've got to participate. You got to get beyond what is, because when you look at who is running for elections, and I can give you that history of 22 plus years, you see the transition in people, and it makes you wonder why some people run and you have people who probably have a lot more qualification that just don't run. So that is something that's always been of curiosity to me. But your vote is your voice. Don't vote, you don't have a voice.
And it's interesting that you mentioned that when we did a voters drive at UVI some years ago, over and over and over, the students kept saying, what's the point? What's the point? And so now we've learned that we can't go out there and just have a voters drive and say, hey, sign up to vote. We also have to say why we want you to vote. And that's a great lead into some of the trends we've been talking about. I don't know if any of you have any specific data, but can we talk about who's voting and who really isn't showing up? Anybody want to jump in and tackle that one?
Well, I think the numbers don't lie. I think in this last primary election, we barely had any participants that were 44 and younger. I think the only 44 and younger demographic makes up about 4,000 voters of our active registered voters. They're about 4,000, give or take a few. And the majority of the voting population, the active voting population in the Virgin Islands, are 45 and older. And I think about over 45% of that are 66 and older.
So only the old people voted?
Yeah, so they make up about 85% of our electorate.
So I'll chime in after that too. And so we go to the young people in the schools, but one thing I tell them, would you like your grandmother to be deciding the sneakers you're going to buy or wear? And so that's what we're doing with voting, because the elders are the only one voting, deciding the future of the Virgin Islands. And that's what you're really doing. So we continue to speak and share examples and experiences so they know how important it is.
Mr. Williams?
2 points. Doing voter registration over the years. Go to Central High, go to the complex, public schools, hundreds of students. You may register 2 people. Go to Country Day and Good Hope. You're going to register 10 or more with a smaller population. That in of itself shows you where the levels of interest lie. And the fact that a lot of young people, they come to get an ID card.
Yeah.
They are not concerned about the voting issue. They don't care about voting because, again, voter apathy. When you have family members and people in our community, and I'm bold enough to tell you, even our elected officials don't help in the cause because they promote a bunch of ignorance in our community and try to get people to buy into that, for them to vote for them. But they ain't voting for you because they're voting.
Right.
So you're not helping the situation.
So I'm going to steer this back to you, Ashley, because despite your gray, you are the youngest of our panelists here, and not that you have to represent your entire group, but what are some thoughts? How would you convince folks that are your age or younger to participate? Because before we jumped on air, we were speaking about the fact that the last election, the one senator did make it in only by 9 votes, we said?
9 votes in the primary election.
So that's 9 of your friends could have made the difference in having someone elected or not be elected. So what would you say to, the younger audience? Why? Why should they even care?
So I've been having this conversation for the last 10 years, with my peers and now Generation Z that's upcoming. What is the issue? And part of what you hear is the complaints, well, what's the reason? Why am I voting? What does voting do for me? And then, but the other side of it that I attempt to explain is, well, people that get elected read the numbers too. And they realize that the demographic that elects them are 45 and older. Well, policies that they are going to focus on and create are going to be geared towards the people that elect them. And so I think it's almost like the cart and the horse, because a lot of younger voters feel like, well, the system doesn't work for us. There's not much things that are done to assist us, so why am I going to participate? So some may say, well, we need to do more things geared towards them that makes them feel that the system impacts their lives on a more tangible basis. So then they will then decide to vote. But then it doesn't necessarily work that way, because people that get elected, they tend to focus on who elects them.
And getting reelected.
And it's this vicious cycle that ends up happening. And I think a lot of it sometimes goes to education, and not just in the schools, because I know we focus on education in the schools, but a lot of it comes to education in your homes. You know, I got passionate about politics because it was around me. You know, my parents were talking about it. I'm sure most of us on this couch that, you know, your parents were involved, and that is what got you involved. And, you know, I think there was some type of mishap in as we developed, that a generation stopped involving their children, stopped bringing their children to political rallies, or started talking negative about the process. And that apathy then seeped into the next generation, and that's what we're seeing now, is a generation of apathy that has been passed on to new generations. And I think that is what is part of what we're seeing, that then is able to be fed into the ignorance that Mr. Williams had talked about earlier, where you have candidates that, for their benefit, they talk about the system in a negative way, put out misinformation, hoping that it disparages the candidates that are already in office, not realizing that they're feeding the apathy that already exists. And to your point, those same people aren't necessarily coming out to vote for you. You're just reinforcing the negative apathy that was fed into them by people before you. And I think that then just kind of continues to feed into where we are today.
So I add to that conversation. So in our times, like I say, your parents took you to register to vote. My parents didn't talk politics at home, but that was your rights, right? Civic duty. And again, the political parties also, back then, they come in the communities or in the bandstand in Frederiksted, and they try to tell you what the platforms are and recruit, whether the candidates, but the parties too. Now, most of the time, the meeting is some bar, some club. The people not going there. You have to go where the people are. If you go in the projects on a Sunday afternoon or Saturday afternoon and speak to the people in the housing, somewhere come out, you may get one or two, but you can't expect everyone to come to this central location and have the time the parties meeting where they're drinking after. People ain't for that. So we have to find different approaches for the different categories of the people that we're looking at, the young people.
I share a little different perspective. Similar to what you said, Ashley, and Supervisor Fox. I grew up in a family, a complete community called the Mecca, Grove Place, the village. So everything that the supervisor just explained, that's what I grew up into. My dad was a senator in 1963. I am second generation legacy member of the Public Services Commission. My dad served on the commission when it started. I'm second generation on that. I tried to unseat my dad as a member of the Board of Education by telling me, we had a discussion one day. I was just fresh out of college. I said, look, I got to run for the Board of Education because I know more people than you, and I could beat you. He said, boy, I go sit down in the corner, and you just watch me. And I recognize that, you know, you're running for an office that you had no clue. It's just something fun to do at the time. But politics and growing up around, I refer to myself as a statesman with a filthy mouth. But because politicians generally do everything you just explained, what I do is for the love of my community. Some people get pleasure in money. I get pleasure in being a public servant. You know, and public service is what has driven me through my family, through my entire lifetime. But I use my son for an example. When I would go around setting up for election day, I took my son around with me to help me put up posters and signs, where to vote, blah, 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 this, that. And even though he was raised that way, he too suffers with both as apathy. Doesn't live here, but you know, it's always the constant back and forth. To your point, why you do that for? I said, because it makes a difference. You've got to participate. You live on the mainland, we got candidates out there, you got to be a part of that. So you know, there's enough blame to go around. Correct. But I think it's up to the individual, because you spoke to it earlier. Why? And who's to blame? It's like saying, what's your moral compass in your office? Morality begins with you, the individual. I can't make you happy. You gotta want to be happy to get there. So I think the responsibility lies on that individual initially.
I think it would be really interesting to, have a revolution of sorts. If you go, I am an official veteran, I'm saying this on TV, love to have a great time. And if you did a count of those folks that are out at an event, and you said that, hey, if all those people decided that we are going to select a candidate that represents us, that represents our issues, our idea, I really think that you could put someone in office. Because, the lowest, you could, maybe 1,000, 1,500 votes to get someone in? But it hasn't happened in a category where I feel that we're missing the gap, that under 44. To me, I feel like it's rare. But if all those folks that decided that these people are not representing me, you're not doing what I want you to do. So get all those folks together and you pick a candidate that you felt represents you. I really feel they could put someone in office. I just don't know why it hasn't happened.
Well, and absolutely. I'm going to give you the perfect example. Generation Now. When we started that organization, the value behind that was to help to fix quote-unquote apathy. It was to make our voices heard. We did the report card.
Right.
You would believe how sitting senators, they were scared to know that, they got a report card coming out, because we looked at the critical issues, the factors of what you present. We got senators, they do resolutions all day long. That doesn't fix the fabric, and you grade those things. We did rock the vote.
Yeah.
Similar to you fetted. That's how we are fetted. We went to Atlanta, to CBC. We took people out to show them the value of the vote.
Yeah.
Everyone came up, even the politicians, the people running for office, because they recognize this is a new generation, a new dynamic, and that is how and what we did back then. So it's not for the lack of not having done it, but getting people to want to become involved, doing this.
Yes.
As what the supervisor said, I could have been in the bar, instead of doing this.
Right.
So,
We're definitely hoping that this is going to poke somebody in their rib to get them moving. If I want to be, I always tell folks, I'm not into politics, but I'm an educated voter, and I always say that because I seek information. So can you all share, I'm going to start with Supervisor Fox here, and then maybe you all can share, where can those who want to be educated about the process, about the candidates, where can they go to start looking for information so that they're not voting because you bought me a drink or you have the best hat or shirt or whatever?
So again, the election office is responsible for the processes of information about voting. We can't tell you much about the candidates because we try to be impartial. So www.vivote.gov is our website. We're on Facebook. We try to do the social media platform for the young people. And so we try to push out information as much as possible. We too had the Civics Matters quiz bowl that we started this last year. We plan to continue that and things like that to help educate and again, starting from the younger generation. Because you don't want to wait until they reach 12th grade to try to get them in.
That bowl. What is it?
The quiz bowl was civics quiz bowl. Between the board and the staff, we came up with some questions relative to elections or just information on history in the Virgin Islands and the Caribbean Islands, and then we put together where the high schools competed, and that was done in the summer last year. And then we went to the challenge. They came into the office. They did the challenges there. The board members asked the questions, and whichever school came out first, then St. Croix went against St. Thomas. So it was complex against Charlotte Amalie High School, and the St. Croix Educational Complex won. So of course, they want rematch and whatnot. So that's how so we did try in that way approach to do Civics Bowl to get that involved. But again, when you go to the school, sometimes they don't have the time. The periods are different now. The schedule are different than 1 year ago. So they don't have a lot of time to get into the schools to do some of the education that we like. Again, I go back to the homes, the churches, the political party, and the candidates themselves get themselves together and educate too, because it's not just elections office.
Awesome. And want to share where we get resources.
Yes. And continuity, educating and re-educating the young voters, the middle-aged voters, that voters under the age of 44 with registration, and getting their trust. When we go out and talk with people and stuff like that, go to where they're at. Meet them in the supermarket. Get that conversation going. I spent 20 minutes at one of the printing shops talking with, she told me she was a millennial, so we had a good conversation. I'm like, okay. I'm like, how come I haven't seen you? You know, she says, well, she was saying age versus millennium. I said, no, well, I'm 68 years old and I'm listening to you. Because we had a senator in the printing shop, so she was like digging her, right? And I said, well, if you have all those concerns, and she said, I wrote 15 letters to 15 senators and nothing happened. I said, then what? She didn't say anything. I said, then that's when you go and knock on their door and you bring your group. When they have their hearings, you go with 100 people or more. Change is very slow. And we get comfortable and stuff like that. We got to go to where they're at. Ballparks, parking lots. I've had big parking lot discussions with the guys in the parking lot. Very political. I mean, they got some stuff going, but they don't trust the system. So getting that trust back into the community and going to the basketball court, going to the tennis court, going to the community centers. When I used to come home, we had a lot of community centers at one time, remember, when I used to come home. But being a part of the civil rights movement when I was growing up, we've got to remind everybody the importance. You remember Selma, the Bloody Sunday, when all those people were knocked down, some died, beat up and stuff like that? We got to remind everybody that this can happen again. It's happening already. Right. Voter suppression in the mainland, the 50 United States, okay? The territory, we need to be voting. We pay the taxes, and this has been a fight, just like it's been a fight. Imagine, we've only been allowed to vote for 59 years. That's only, what, 5 decades and 9 years? Right. That's not a long time.
Does the league have any resources that you all have available for those who are seeking information?
Yes, they have a website, so I have to get that. I'm a new member. I'm very new and stuff like that. So, but I'm out there, and I'm, like I said, I'm passionate because I know the danger of not voting. Your rights can and will be taken away from you. And we have to stand up for that. And we have to maybe do a community theater and show the civil rights movement with that Selma incident and stuff like that, so that we could be in touch with it and realize that how long have we been voting in the territory? How many years?
1960s.
1960. So we're under 100 years of voting, 150 years of voting.
60 years. We celebrated
60
last
years.
year.
We just celebrated 60 years. Okay.
So I'm going to go to Ashley real quick. I know that you are a data junkie.
Oh, yeah.
Where are some of the places you go to make sure that you're informed, you know, and you have an informed vote when you're looking at your potential candidates?
Well, you know, what's interesting, I think there's more information available today than has ever been available in the history of voting in the Virgin Islands. In the past, you know, legislative hearings, you either caught it on the radio, or when you know TV came about, you could catch it on the government access channel. But you have to then have like the cable to be able to catch it. In today's day and age, you can catch it on YouTube, you can catch it on on Instagram, Facebook, you know, and on the same mediums, the radio, and you could go back and watch it at any time. You know, there are times where I don't get to watch a hearing live because I'm doing something else, and I get to go back in the middle of the night and get to watch, you know, hearings. You get to go on the website. You get to see all of it in real time. You get to see majority of the documents that are part of the official record for different hearings on the legislative website, legislative U.S. Virgin Islands website. And then most candidates, not all candidates, but most candidates that are running also have websites. They have Facebook pages, and I think that's been a great thing. But then I think the other side of it that has also created noise is that because of the internet and anybody can put anything out there, you also now have the proclivity for a lot of misinformation to be able and under-inform people, whether ignorantly or purposely, you know, can now have voices, you know, where in the past, where somebody like Mr. Williams would be speaking on an issue, would be given a platform, the advent of no social media, people that really don't take the time to do the homework, that don't take the time to do the research, to have the prerequisite conversations, now have the ability to inform and to say anything. It can be just as persuasive, or in some cases more persuasive than even the supervisor of elections about elections issues.
Right.
And so I think with technology, it's a double-edged sword. But so you have to know where to look. You have to be able to discern what is credible sources. But you everyone has the ability to do the work themselves. We don't live in a generation where you have to be dependent on anything that anyone here says. We have the ability to go on websites and be able to look at anything that's available. But I just wanted to add one thing, because it's been mentioned a few times when we talk about political parties. Well, in the Virgin Islands, we only really have one political party, right? And I think that's part of the issue that we have here when we talk about even voter apathy, right? The fact that we have 3 registered major parties in the Virgin Islands: the Democratic Party, the Republican Party, and the Independent Citizens Movement Party. And the fact is, for the last almost over 10 years, 2 of those parties have been largely dormant. So then you don't have like you have in the United States, you don't have a battle of ideals that tends to have where people can then have discourse and debates and disagreements. So it makes it difficult when the majority of the people that are running are Democrats, or even when they run as independents, they're really Democrats just running as independents because they don't want to go through the primary. So I think we also have to have those types of discussions.
But there's one thing there, actually. If you look at the voting rolls, not just the rolls by registration, we might have 40,000 registered Democrats in the territory, but when you go to vote, they ain't voting the donkey. People are voting independently. Because if I like what this person over here says, I'm a Democrat all my life, I'll vote for that person. So the party system in of itself has a lot of work to do, but the idea, because we're Democrat, when one of my uncles voted back in the day, he literally hit the symbol and he done. He didn't care who was on the ballot. He is a Democrat, so that's how he voted. But to Ashley's point, you have social media. People have a plethora of information available to them out here. So again, it's not about the school or this group or that group not doing their part. It's about you, the individual, wanting to make the difference by going and find out. Not to show up because I had the baddest food sale or baddest fish fry, or I had the baddest jam with the baddest entertainment, or I going to vote for she. That's nonsense. And we've got to stop thinking like that.
A lot of times they don't even come out and vote.
Exactly.
Ms. Fox, you were going to say something?
I just want to mention, you talk about all those other stuff, but don't forget AI, because that's infiltrating the system now and putting stuff that is fake or real. So we got that along with all the disinformation, malinformation, and misinformation. So we'll be putting another PSA on that in the next week or 2.
That sounds like we definitely need to have it. We only have a few more minutes, and I want to make sure that we hit on 2 important topics. There's a cry from our community about, what's wrong, what needs to change, and so forth, especially when it comes to elections and voting. What are some opportunities for our community to get involved and volunteer and be a part of the process? Who wants to jump in?
So I'll start. Again, in the election system, everyone you see on election day out of the office are your community members. So they can become election officials. There's opportunities, there's an application on the website, or you can come into the office and fill it out manually. And again, you talk about website, but we have a lot of the elders don't do websites, so that's where we have the other medias for them to come in. So they could come in and be election official, because those persons out there are your peers, they're the teachers, they're the doctors, nurses in your community. And one Virgin Islander can't keep a secret. So they have teaching going on in the voting site, they will talk. The results come into the office. So you could be an election official, you could be a voting technician, and we try to divorce the group over the years. So I have Caucasians, you don't see them here, but in St. Thomas and John, Caucasian teachers are working with us, Rastas are working with us, because I want them to see your community represented, they're working.
Right.
And turn it over to the rest.
And basically, to get their interest is volunteerism also. Get that 44 to 18 age involved in the community, back involved in the community, instead of just complaining about the process. Learn what the process is, because a lot of comments is because you don't have the trust because you don't know the process. Learn the process so that you could be a part of the process of change and stuff like that.
And I think the simple answer to your question, you represent it. You represent it. Organizations, you're doing your part. Big up DST for that.
Of course.
You're doing your part.
We're there from 1913. We still push it.
So it's a matter of organizations like yours and others stepping up, stepping out, and trying to assist. Simple as that.
Awesome. Last, we would be, we couldn't end this show without actually stating how they can register to vote. Just in case this is, your grandmother has you pinned down on the couch and you have to watch this show, please share how can they vote? How can they register to vote?
So registration, if you're 17 and a half and going to turn 18 by November 5th, you can register to vote. Registration, you need birth paper. Every document is original. Your U.S. passport, naturalization certificate, or a DD-214 for those in the military, certification of retirement. And those are the documents you bring to our office. It takes less than 10 minutes, and you register to vote. St. John office is open on Tuesdays and Thursdays, but the other two offices are 5 days a week.
All right, will you please again state the website, phone number?
Okay, www.vivote.gov. The office phone number is 340-773-1021.
And I'm going to do a 10-second round robin before we close out. I want you all think about our audience. If there's just one sentence that you want to share to encourage them, empower them about the need for them to vote, to participate and get involved. 10 seconds. We're going to start with you, Mr. Williams.
Simple. Your vote is your voice. If you don't participate in the process, you are a part of the problem. Simple.
All right.
Yes. Vote for the change that you want. Just sitting down complaining about it is not the answer. The answer is you register and vote.
Be the change that you want to see. If voting wasn't important, you wouldn't have billionaires and millionaires spending large sums of money to either convince you who to vote for or to stop you from voting. So just remember to be the change that you want to see. We are the change that we seek.
And for me, again, that one vote could put somebody in over the hump or could cause somebody to lose. So one vote makes a difference. Thank you.
I definitely agree and concur. I couldn't say any better other than using the examples of real life, real time. That last election, when I saw those 9 votes, I'm like, wow. Yeah. Literally 9 people determined who was going to represent us in that race. So again, thank you all for coming out and sharing your thoughts. I know that in political season it can get a little rough, but we need to understand that discourse is important as long as we have it respectfully, that we should have debates, we should have conversations, and everyone doesn't have to think the same way. That's not what it's about. It's really about making sure that you exercise your right to vote, exercise your privilege to pick the people that you think will represent who you are. So on that note, on behalf of the St. Croix Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, we just want to thank you for joining us today. Thank you to our panelists and our professionals. It's esteemed to be in your presence. We appreciate that. I also want to thank you all on behalf of our president again, Ms. Petra Victor, and wish everyone well. Please go out and vote. We don't care who you vote for, pick somebody, but vote. Have a great day.